This is why we don't have friends on the show, because we can't get shit done.
I'm done.
We've got 26 minutes of bloopers. Okay. Hey there, beautiful people. Welcome to FANTI, the podcast for all those complex and complicado conversations about the gray areas in our lives. I am journalist, author, light-skinned person with a little bit of a fade instead of being bald, Jarrett Hill.
I'm Tre'vell Anderson. We have got a very special episode.
Oh, that's it? Oh, wait. That's all? You're just Tre'vell Anderson?
I don't need no honorifics. They know who I am.
Those aren't honorifics, but I know what you just did.
Whatever. Okay? No need for descriptors or adjectives or titles.
I could get into the formal definition of an honorific if you want.
No, thank you. We're okay. We're okay without it, because you know what I meant. Thank you very much. Anyway, okay, we have got a very special episode for the people today.
I'm super excited about this one. In light of the drop of his new book, When Crack Was King, journalist and author, and one of our dearest, oldest friends, Donovan X, Ramsey, is back on the show today. You may remember him from a past episode of FANTI called Karen's Coming to Town in season 2 when we were talking about gentrification. And
yes.
Yeah, he was fantastic on that.
Yes, that episode also had one of my other friends, Robert Myrick, and another Morehouse graduate, as Donovan is as well. We had Robert on that podcast episode as well. Check it out. It was really good. Mm-hmm. And we're excited to have him back on the show and excited to share this interview with you all. It's a little longer than our normal interviews, so, buckle up, but it is really, really good. We end up talking about, giving writing a book the FANTI treatment, and so you get to hear from 3 authors.
Hey, all right. Come on, honorific.
Okay.
I didn't have to do that. I did have to do that. I did.
This is why you did. You did. Anyway, okay, when we come back from a break, okay, we will jump straight into that interview. So make sure you don't go nowheres. All right?
Yeah, I'm going to cry. It's a lot. Y'all enjoy it. All right, baby. It is summer, and Brooklinen is really here to help you swap out that winter warmth for the easy, breezy comfort with their award-winning sheets and home essentials that you have got to get on your bed and in your home.
Absolutely. Brooklinen uses only the highest quality materials for all their products, such as long staple cotton, okay? So everything they create is built to last. Well, there's no such thing as the perfect sleep. There is ideal fabric for every kind of sleeper, cool off with their crisp, classic percale weave, okay? Or try their best-selling buttery smooth Luxe Sateen sheets. I have the Luxe Sateen ones in case y'all were wondering, because, I'm a luxurious type of person, okay?
You know what?
And I'm actually about to I was just saying to somebody the other day that I need to, it's time to swap out my linens, just for it, because it's getting warmer, but also because, I feel like after you have sheets for a little minute, you go and get you some new sheets. That's like one of the easiest ways you can like treat yourself and like, revamp your space. And guess what? Brooklinen is here for you.
You can shop in-store or online at brooklinen.com today to give yourself the cooling sleep you deserve this summer. Use promo code FANTI for $20 off your online purchase of $100 or more, plus free shipping on brooklinen.com. That's BROOKLINEN.com. Use promo code FANTI for $20 off plus free shipping. Welcome back to FANTI. What y'all don't know is we are 20 minutes into showing our asses in this recording, and we haven't even started the interview. This is going to be fun. If you've listened to this show for any amount of time, you've probably known that in the course of the run of FANTI, we have become an author and authoress times 2. Tre'vell's book, We See Each Other, A Black Trans Journey Through TV and Film, is already in stores, and our book together, Historically Black Phrases, from One of Your Little Friends, so who all gonna be there, is available now for pre-order and will be out on September 19th. One of the things I found most interesting about being an author is talking to other authors about what writing a book has been like for them. To date, I've not met a single author who said, "Oh my God, it was great. I loved it." Literally every single author I've spoken to has given me a response like, "Girl, it almost took me out."
My God, today.
Or at least that's been my response.
Listen.
But I've consistently heard that it's been a rough, difficult process that they didn't love, even when appreciating that it's been worth it. I had to invite one of the friends I've had this conversation with many times over the years to dig into the complex and complicado of writing a book. His new book is out this week and is described as a kaleidoscopic account of the crack cocaine era and a community's ultimate resilience, told through a cast of characters whose lives illuminate the dramatic rise and fall of the epidemic. His book is called When Crack Was King, A People's History of
Get it right now.
Donovan, I'm getting emotional.
Do that over. Oh, he crying.
No, I'm like, I've just known you for so long. And like,
oh,
I wasn't expecting that. His book is called When Crack Was King.
A People's History of a Misunderstood Era, okay? It's author and our returning champion, Donovan X Ramsey. Welcome back to FANTI.
Aw, thank y'all for having me. And Jarrett, thank you for crying. We have known each other for quite a long time. We were talking about it right before we got started, like back to like 2008, 2009.
Yeah. We've just all come such a long way.
And Tre'vell, I've known since they were knee high
to a stiletto boot. punching down Morehouse College. It's such a blessing, like to see how far everyone has come and to like be reading your book right now. Like,
amen.
Full disclosure, it's a read. It's a long read. I'm not all the way through it, but like,
oh yeah, she's thick, honey.
Getting to read your writing. Yes, she's a thick girl. She THIQUE, baby.
Listen, I thought my book was thick, baby. Okay. But this one got all the junk in the trunk, honey, okay?
Baby, honey, she's just the big bones.
It's so good, though.
I'm really just enjoying reading your writing and the way that you're contextualizing the crack epidemic and getting to like have it. It's been sitting here on my shelf on the show for a number of weeks now and leading up to it coming. And I'm just really, really proud of you in this moment. And so before we kind of get into the fan and the anti of it all, I'm curious about, we just read the general description that will go out for your book, and you'll probably hear that read 1,000 times in interviews. And I know that what our process was like for writing ours. Tre'vell just ran and grabbed their copy as well.
I just wanted to give people a visual so they can see.
Yes. It's a book.
You know what we mean.
I mean, she's a book, okay?
Just how thick she is.
We just read the description of your book, and I remember us writing our description and going back and forth about each word and where they go and all of that. Talk to me about even that process at the end of writing your book, of now having to like contextualize it for people.
Yeah, no, that is probably one of the hardest things, right? Like, not just to put the information down, but to figure out like, well, how do I package and like present it? And for me, the question that I asked myself was like, you know, what do you think crack's legacy was? And for me, it is, you know, a part of the story is just the fact that it's misunderstood. And I write about it being misunderstood and the reasons why I think it's misunderstood. And that's, you know, really what I wanted to do with the book, is to help people understand. So that was kind of how we got to that title, subtitle, and like the loose description. Yeah. It was hard. I was fighting folks.
Even Tre'vell and I had a lot of back and forth about a subtitle for our book.
Listen, okay.
How did you think about the title and the subtitle and how that would come together to be able to say something? Because it's also like a bold cover. It is a bold title, When Crack Was King. Like, talk to me about that a little bit.
So I had the title first, like, oddly enough. I wanted something that like big and epic. So the idea of When Crack Was King was that we would talk about this like grand era that was significant and had significant impact. And I kind of borrowed from this phrase that was used in the kind of like antebellum era, which was King Cotton, where they talked about the importance of cotton as a commodity in the United States and how it was big enough to create fortunes. It was big enough to change laws, like move society in different ways, but also big enough to start a war. And for me, in the community that I grew up in, crack was that. It was this commodity that changed people's lives entirely, and it also started a war. It, in like a phase in the war on drugs that that was really heightened during the crack era. So it seemed fitting that the book would be about when crack was king.
Okay, so for the discussion today, and I have some follow-up questions there in particular, actually, but I'm gonna save them for later, because we got a show, we got this whole FANTI thing or whatever. But our kind of starter question for the discussion about just kind of the mechanics, the experience of putting a book together is like, why did you want to write a book in the first place? And specifically, why this book?
Yeah. So I wanted to write a book because I'm out of my mind. And I figured, well, how hard could it be?
Yeah.
Like, it is a manifestation of some deep neuroses, psychoses. Like, I got some issues. No, but I mean, seriously, I love books. That there are some stories that can only be told over a book length piece of work. Mm-hmm. And in that medium in particular, because people can sit with it, they can take it with them, they can follow a topic, along a journey, and it not just be, like the articles that I had written before. And I love writing articles as well. But it seemed to me that a story as big and as important of the crack epidemic, which there hadn't been authoritative history written of it before, that it was worthy of that level of treatment. And I read Isabel Wilkerson's The Warmth of Other Suns, which is about...
I was just thinking about her.
I mean, and it's so, amazing book. For those that haven't read it, it is a story of the Great Migration that's told through these three characters that leave the South for big cities. And the book follows them along that journey. And what it does is, right, it puts language to a phenomenon that most Black Americans kind of know intuitively, which is that, if you're from the North, you got family in the South. If you're from the South, you got family that moved north. Everybody's grandmother is like a little bit Southern, right? Like, we're all connected, by those roots. Mm-hmm. But, not everybody thought of themselves, especially in northern cities, right, as like migrants from the South. And that's what her book did, was it like added context to this thing that we think we understand. So after I read that, I thought, well, that's why you write a book. Mm-hmm. And, is there a topic that feels to me worthy of that? And crack was it.
I want to kind of get perspective from each of us on this about the respective projects that we're working on. Tre'vell, why did you think about writing a book in the way that you did? Because I know this was a years-long process for you before it became We See Each Other.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought I would write a book. That wasn't, what? Write a book? Girl, sit your ass down. You know what I mean? It just always seemed as something unachievable, or like, like the task was just too big. And then, you become a daily like a daily reporter, right? And you're shitting out pieces, because you have to, because you got to keep a blog going at the Los Angeles Times while also filling the newspaper every single day, right? And working on projects and whatnot. And so you'd be like, oh, well, I'm now at a point in which, like, I know I can write well. I can write well under pressure, but also the stories that I love the most are actually the ones that I get more time to wrestle with the content, with the material, to think about how I'm going to put words together. And then I left the LA Times, right? And I went to the magazine space where there was, a little bit more space to work and wrestle with things. And I think similar to what Donovan was saying, at a point, there was just so much that I wanted to talk about, particularly around this visibility of trans folks conversation, that even magazines could not hold space-wise, right? Like my last piece for Out magazine, before they laid me off, 2 days before Christmas 2019, is this 5,000 6,000 word piece about trans visibility, right? And in which I interview Laverne and Chella Mann and chart a history between both of their journeys. They're not giving out 5,000 words for the girls to write. I was surprised that Philip Picardi and Raquel Willis said, girl, right. And so after that, it was just like, this history is important. There was so much that I could not and did not include in that piece. It feels worthy of, this broader text. And it would also give me the opportunity, I thought in my head, to really sit with, the archive, sit with these images in a meaningful way. And then, the idea shifted and twisted and all of that other stuff from there. But that's kind of like how the journey to the book and being an author in the first place kind of manifested for me. But we know you, Jarrett, you've been thinking about writing a book for decades.
Well, no, I haven't been. And so it's interesting because this isn't the first book that I've written, but this is the first book that I've published, right? I wrote another book telling someone else's story. I wrote a book about this man named Reggie Webb. It was called Pursuing Parity, and it's about his incredible influence in making McDonald's into the diverse company that it is today. He was one of their first Black executives, and I got to write his story, and we never ended up publishing it, right? We kind of I wrote it, and that was kind of the end, and we never edited and went on with it. But then this book for historically Black phrases was something that was not ever something I was thinking about. And Tre'vell and I started joking about we have to find different ways to tell this story because we're going to have to tell it 1,000 times and we're going to be tired of hearing it. But
I'm already tired of hearing it, friend.
I know you're tired of hearing it, and I'm tired of telling the story at this point, right? But making Facebook posts, using the hashtag historically Black phrases, and that kind of, someone asked me if I was making a book or something, and that kind of sparked the idea, and I kept trying to figure out what to do with it, right? And I'm very much an ideas person, and I wanted to see what I could do with the idea, and so this has been 7 years in the making to our book coming out in September, because I tried to sell it as a book. I tried to sell it as a television show. I tried to sell it as a video series for Blavity or BuzzFeed, or I tried to just wanted to do something with the conversation about it. And so the book was the thing that ended up moving in a certain kind of way after the television show. I kind of developed in a certain kind of way.
You just needed some extra razzle dazzle on top. You just needed an extra little je ne sais quoi.
And I found that. And I found that with an agent named Patrice, and she really
Wow.
But when Tre'vell and I started working together, I was like, Tre'vell has a voice that is distinctly different than mine, but is also very Black, and we work well together. And it was I think that might be what this is missing. And so then coming together to work on the book, it just it all really came together, and now it's here. I think by the time y'all see this, this will already be out in the world, but the book is coming. And so this for me was about seeing what I could do with this idea, and how far we could take it. And we're still thinking about other ways that we can do things with it and bring more opportunities to have conversation about our language and the way that we speak and the way that we address the world and give it validity and credibility. And that's something that has happened for me in the process of writing this book, right? Having more respect for the ways that Black folks speak, the ways that I want to write, the ways that I want to be able to express myself. It's affirmed me in a way that I didn't really expect, and certainly wasn't looking for out of wanting to twerk this idea into something, right? It's become a part of my life. And it's also made me think a lot more about what I want to do next, in a way that working on a project like this has a significant impact on your life. And it's do you want to be talking about this for years? Do you want to be immersed in conversations around this, leading them, being on panels, doing interviews, having to write about it, thinking about it? How do you want to immerse yourself in that kind of work for the time going forward? And so it's made me think a lot more about that as well as I work on other projects. So all of that to get us to the fan and the anti. Donovan, I would love for you to give us some perspective on what did you love about getting to tell this story, about writing this book?
Yeah. First, I want to highlight you saying that Tre'vell has a voice that is distinctly Black.
I was going to say, I know you're not about to say something deep. It's about to be some shit. Tre'vell's voice is so representative of so many people that I've known throughout my life and my family.
Listen,
that is distinctly different than mine. Yeah.
No, absolutely. 1,000%.
If you want to just call me a hood booger, you can call me a hood booger. I don't mind.
a distinctly Black perspective in terms of your voice, right? So like metaphorically, but also right, like a mastery of the nuances of Black speech and performance. Distinctly Black voice. Say that.
Absolutely.
What was the question? You were asking me.
What did you love about writing your book? Like, what really hit for you?
So, like, being like just like the nerd that I am, like, I love the research, I love the reporting, I love the interviewing. Like, this book taught me that the thing that I love most about the sort of like journalistic process is interviewing. That, you know, if I had to like take or leave any piece, like, I could leave writing. I mean, please take the writing away. No, Lord, please don't take the writing away. Let me be careful. But I mean, like you know.
Oh my God, I totally
Like,
got what just happened right there. Take it away, but don't take
You
it
see
away.
what I'm saying? Writing is hard.
It
Is what I mean. That the writing is hard. The writing has to be collaborative. But for me, that like conversation piece, it comes so easily and it's so like enjoyable for me that I basically write stories so I can interview people. And I don't think that I would enjoy writing if there wasn't some level of interviewing associated with it. So that was really amazing because I talked to, you know, hundreds of people who survived the crack epidemic. And I got to ask questions that I really wanted to know the answers to. You know, like, you know, why would you smoke crack? How did you stay addicted to crack for years? Like, why would you sell crack? Did you feel bad that you sold crack? Like, you know what I mean? Like, these are things that, you know, it is like the privilege of being a journalist is that you get to ask people questions that otherwise would be inappropriate and satisfy your curiosity. You know what I mean? Well, like, how much money did you make selling crack? How much money did you spend smoking crack? You know what I mean? Like, those are like real questions. And so, you know, I hope that the book satisfies people's curiosity and they feel like they are a part of those conversations with me.
Tre'vell, what did you really enjoy about We See Each Other?
Well, I was just thinking to this point that Donovan made about like the actual interviewing. Interestingly enough, you know, a lot of my book is based on like interviews that I've already done, like not interviews I did specifically for the book, but like reporting that I've done. And the other week I did a book talk at the Film Academy Museum here in LA, and somebody asked me about how when they go to the you know, cited sources or whatever at the back of my book, the first few are mine because, you know, last name Anderson. The first few are mine.
Come on.
Period.
They asked me about that, and I said something to the effect of like the importance of like asserting and building out like what is an archive of trans voices and queer voices on these issues, and how, you know, I ended up having to cite myself because I was one of few people covering these stories. And then the stories that I didn't cover, it was important for me to have other articles, other works that trans folks and queer folks had written about these things. But one of the things that I've enjoyed the most about the book is actually doing the podcast, you know, as an extension of it, because of We See Each Other, the podcast, available wherever you listen to wonderful podcasts. But because the podcast has allowed us to do that conversation bit of this work, right? To tease out some of these issues, some of these topics that you do kind of have to, you know, put into some sort of framing, right, in the book, or at least I felt like I had to in my book. And so the best part has been the conversations on the back end. It's been these podcasts and like being able to like talk to people, regular people, but also folks who are part of these conversations and tease out some of these topics in deeper, more complex ways. And I think that's something that I've really enjoyed because I've spoken on the podcast a lot about like my particular writing style and how it gets on my friggin' nerves. But it is what it is. And, you know, she's not changing. I've tried. And so it was it was a difficult journey for me in the writing of We See Each Other, a journey that, you know, we were able to share, Jarrett, I feel like, when we started working on historically Black phrases. And so that's what I'm thinking about in terms of like the positives. It's just like the conversation, like having it done, because even, you know, we'll talk about this when we get to the anti part, but like the things outside of the writing and the things outside of like the interviewing that you have to go through to get a book on a fucking shelf. My God, today. Especially if your book happens to be about transgenders or Black folks or whomever, right? And so you're navigating a host of things, but don't let me jump too quickly.
Listen, my God, today, yesterday, tomorrow, like... I would say that I feel like we've all grown up in an era where like writing a book was a big deal. And like today it still feels significant and important and valuable, and like you're making a contribution to culture, right? And like it started to feel like a big milestone moment. The way that I saw people like start to respond to like, oh, we got a book deal, right? Like it's become a bit with friends, right? Like, okay, book deal. Like it was a thing with friends, and like how they talk about it and how they talk to other people about it. Your parents start to speak about it in a certain kind of way. And like, it felt like a big deal for a lot of different reasons. And like, we got a good deal, right? Like it was public and that kind of thing. But then it also felt fun, right? It felt like something that I could have a good time working on for a long period of time. It felt like something that I couldn't like let go of. I kept thinking about it. I kept being like pulled into it and thinking about like, oh, I could do this, or oh, this conversation I just had with so-and-so was great. And I remember pitching it to, I don't think you normally say who you pitch to and not, but like they gave me such great feedback. I pitched to Larry Wilmore's company, and they have a deal at Universal, NBC Universal, and his development executive's name was Candace, and she gave me a decline. She like passed on it, but she gave me such great feedback that like it made me feel like, oh, this isn't right here because of what they're doing and what their goals are, but there is something here. Right. And she gave me such incredible feedback that it kept me pushing to make something out of it. And like the thing that I loved about it was like being able to like see it come fully to fruition. Like we just got the book in the mail yesterday, right? And so like seeing it in my hand now, my people keep asking me like, oh, how do you feel? And I'm like, I don't even know yet. Like I haven't been able to like process the fact that the idea has come like fully to fruition now. And like, you know, I'm at work, I got to do the show, I have to do the things, and like, and I haven't like sat down and processed it, but like, that was kind of like what I've loved the most about the process of this book, has been like being able to just see an idea come fully realized. And some of those things are short term and some of them are longer term. And this has been one of them. What, Tre'vell? What?
I just heard you say that the thing you like the most about this project is it being done.
That is not what I said.
It did sound like that, just a little bit.
Well, no, but like I mean, I'm a person with a lot of ideas. I have a lot of things moving in the air, and like it's always like you want to see the thing come to fruition, right? And like this has been probably one of the longest projects that I've worked on, from like the first idea into it becoming like a physical thing. Tre'vell, I always think about how within ABJ, we put on events, like we have an idea to do an event, we put it on, or we have an idea to put something out in the world and we put it on. We have an idea to do a show and we put it on. And like, this has been a long process. And Donovan, I know for you, this book has not been a year and a half, right? I know like the idea of a lot of book projects is like you get the deal and it comes out in a year and a half, but this has been years for you. And it's had such an impact in your personal life. Like, let's kind of talk about like, what did you not necessarily love about this process? Why was it challenging?
So it was 5 years from the time that I wrote the book proposal. So, you know, like I had been thinking about it for a while, and then like the process is you have some thoughts, you do a little bit of research, write a proposal, you then get an agent. The agent helps you shop it around. Hopefully you find a publisher, and then you're off to the races. And for me, this was the hardest thing professionally that I've ever done. It, of course, challenged me as a writer, as a researcher, But also it challenged me emotionally, that like the material that I'm dealing with is very, sensitive. And oftentimes, I'm one, hearing people's trauma. There's stories about, like sometimes like the worst things that ever happened to them. And then having to process it with them and then put it into words that will help other people understand it. And I, I have made a career of covering Black Americas, and that's come with its fair share of traumatic events and stories. But I always thought that I could do that with, relatively little sort of consequences for myself, that I did it and had a way of doing it that I could recover from doing it. And being 5 years in this subject matter, it took a lot out of me. And I write at the end of the book that I had basically like a nervous breakdown. I would sit down to write and I would break out in hives, like literally open up Microsoft Word and then be like, why am I so itchy? And it was just my nerves of wanting to get it right. And then also, dealing with, you fall out of love with your voice as a writer, that if you're used to writing, script length, article length, that like you get good at that. And, you learn little things that you can do to make a story work. But then after you're about, 10,000 words in, you like, my like bag of tricks is empty.
Girl. And you got a 90,000 word commitment. Like,
and you're like, oh, like, am I going to do that thing again? Like, am I going to introduce a a person in that way? Like, am I going to use this phrase or this word? Mm-hmm. And the good thing is that you come out on the other side a much better writer if you challenge yourself in that way. If you allow yourself to fall out of love with your voice, then maybe you go back and you read something and you say, oh, I kind of like how they did that. I'm going to just steal that a little bit. Mm-hmm. Or, you get those like strikes of genius where you say, oh, there's a new way to do this. Like, in those, that's the sweet that kind of evens the bitter out, is that those moments of, oh, this is why you write a book. You know what I mean? That like, it pulls you through the process. And hopefully, you come out on the other end with a book that you're proud of. Mm-hmm. And I'm very proud of When Crack Was King.
You should be.
Okay, Donovan, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get more into this conversation. There's so much more to talk about writing a book. Don't go anywhere. FANTI's coming right back.
Hey, Max Fun listeners, this is Cameron Esposito. I'm a stand-up comic, actor, writer, best-selling author, and podcaster. I got a great show called Query where I interview LGBTQ plus luminaries across, a bunch of fields. People in entertainment, astronauts, musicians, rock stars. I am bringing the show to maximum fun. You can listen right now, and I am so happy to be on this network. We have new episodes out every Monday. You can listen at MaximumFun.org or wherever you get your podcasts.
It's official. Max Fun has become a co-op.
We're now a worker-owned network of artist-owned shows supported directly by you.
Thanks to supporters and listeners like you, Max Fun will always be a place where employees have a say.
Thanks to you, shows can continue to partner with an independent, values-driven network.
Thanks to you, we're able to carry on our commitment to our shows and the community we've grown together.
Learn more about what becoming a co-op means for us and you at MaximumFun.org/co-op. That's MaximumFun.org/COOP.
Welcome back to our interview with When Crack Was King author Donovan X Ramsey. Now, Donovan, I wanted to circle back to something that you said. You talked about sitting down to write and breaking out in hives, and then like what that felt like. And I'm always interested in like the mental health aspect of things and like how these things affect you like personally. And like, how did you figure out that that's what that like was? Cause what was the work? Cause you didn't just go like, oh, this is anxiety, right? Like, I mean, like, how did that show up for you?
Well, I only talked about the hives, but the hives were the beginning. It was full body hives. And then it was full on panic attacks. And then it was, why can't I eat? Like, why can't I keep anything down? And then I started losing weight, which was real cute at first. And I said, oh.
You said I should have wrote a book a long time ago. Cut it out.
But these jeans fit incredibly. So that was happening. And like, you know, like anybody that has dealt with any type of like mental health crisis, you know, you go to the ER and your doctor says, well, maybe you tripping. Which is not what you want to hear. They're like, you know, you're like, give me every workup, give me every medication. And then they're like, have you ever thought about the fact that maybe you're a little stressed out? Mm-hmm. And you're like, no, that can't possibly. But after about 3 times doing that,
wow.
I said, well, maybe I am just, you know, having a moment. And then it was, you know, leaning into the moment and saying, you know, what am I afraid of? What are you here to teach me? How do I persevere through this? And yeah, I'm a much tougher person having written this book as well. Now, I should say for the benefit of listeners that I didn't just like get better on my own. I was praying. Jesus did help me, but it also wasn't just Jesus.
Amen.
I know that's right.
Jesus also, you know, provided me with Lexapro.
Hiya.
Jesus also provided me with yoga and, you know, therapy. So thank God from whom all blessings flow.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's right. Tre'vell, listen, you don't have your church mic this week, but like, you're not holding it this time.
Listen, I mean, it'll take just a few quick seconds now, okay?
But Tre'vell, I know that this was a challenging process for you to write We See Each Other. Like, what was that for you personally? Like, what was challenging about it?
Well, I mean, where do I begin? I had a lot of issues. Well, I'll start with the proposal process. I got 12 no's before I got my one yes. And the types of no's that I got were, you know, oh, we love Tre'vell. We love Tre'vell's writing style. We love the voice. We actually love this idea, but we don't know what book this would sit alongside on a shelf. We don't know how we would sell this. And because Disclosure, the documentary, already exists, the future life potential of this, you know, IP is limited. And so that was interesting. And then once I got the deal and they seemingly, you know, believed, and I actually will say the individuals, the people I do think believed in the work, believe currently in the work and its purpose and the reason why I'm doing it. The structures at play, right? The industry at play, those systems at play, in spite of whatever great intentions individuals might have, right, get in the way. What do I mean by that? I told them when we made the deal that I wanted as many Black trans hands to touch this book as possible.
Right. How many did you get?
Technically, well, I will give you 2 numbers. I'm going to give you the number, like the official number in terms of who got a check from Disney, and then I'll give you the number of who I had to call up and be like, hey, girl, I need you to take a look at this because, you know, da-da-da-da-da. And the numbers aren't too drastically different, but, you know, I did get them to hire a Black trans person to help with the cover.
Come on.
But we didn't end up going with that person's work because the system at play kept me from that individual. And so whoever was in between conveyed something different to that individual. Right. And great, beautiful stuff, to be clear, but not for this book, not for what I'm working on. Right. And so there was a lot of back and forth in terms of, you know, the cover situation. I ultimately won, praise the Lord. And then there was the, you know, I did get them to pay for a trans person to do a sensitivity read of the book. But that's pretty much it. Now, I called up some people that I know in community and I was like, hey, can you read this chapter for me? Because I can't trust these cis folks. No shade.
Right.
And so I say this to say, like, there was a lot of work beyond the act of writing the book, of doing the research for the book, that made the process even more taxing, even more exhausting. This is on top of, right, my other 50 lamb jobs, because I don't know how to say no to stuff, right? And so that was a big challenge for me. The last thing I'll say really quickly is, one of the things that I thought a lot about was how, like, to me, a book is like the height of like tactility, of like, something that you can touch. I know that the kids don't be reading books these days, but to me, just a book just feel it just does something. It represents something very final to me in my head, right? In a way that's slightly different than an article, slightly different than, a magazine profile. And so that's something that was always in my head, so much so that one of the things that I hate the most, okay, about this situation is because of some of those processes things that happen behind the scenes, right? And because of the type of writing style that I have specifically, I don't do corrections, okay? I don't do corrections.
Well, meaning what?
Let me explain. I'll explain.
Okay.
I explain. I mean, in the course of my reporting, correction. You know how, like, when you at work in a newspaper, if you get something wrong, you do a correction. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't do corrections because I don't get stuff wrong. You see what I'm saying? And it's important for me.
Period.
And it was important for me in the context of this book, thinking of all of that stuff I just said about finality, to make sure I didn't get nothing wrong. And to me, wrong also includes just like small typos.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That sounds a lot different that way. Okay.
Right? Like, I don't like that. I like it pristine. Because when I read books, it is those little things that stand out to me, right?
And take you completely out of it.
Now, there was a lot of behind the scenes stuff, y'all. Okay. Long story short, because I've been rambling for a little minute. Long story short is, I was reading when I was recording the audiobook for We See Each Other, the podcast. There was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes as it relates to, the final read of the book before it goes to the printer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Let's just say I didn't get a chance to do a final read of the totally fully edited stuff before it went to print. And so I'm reading the version that went to print while recording the audiobook, and I'm coming across typos. I'm coming across it's not a lot. It was only like 8. Because I wrote them down. It was 8 because I wrote them down and I sent an email. I sure did. I sent them an email with every single one that I found. But my point in saying this is that has been like a personal thing for me. Because at a point, you got to send this thing off so the motherfucking get printed so that we can get that thing on the shelf by the date we said we need to, and so like, and there's just a lot of stuff. And so like part of the process for me has been about like realizing the broader system that is at play and just like having to navigate it. Yeah. And, you just gotta throw your hands up at a point because of all these other, strings that are also happening. Okay, I'm done.
What it sounds like, at least I'll say in my situation, because I had some like similar, there were no typos, darling, but
cut it out.
It was these people with their hands in the pot, with their, cooks in the kitchen, injecting issues into the book that wouldn't otherwise be there, or not taking the very rigorous approach that we tend to take with our work, with my work. And my thing is, if you're going to come into this project about these Black folks that really went through, and I'm in the book as one of the Black folks that really went through, don't come over here playing with me, because I'm not playing. And I'm also very aware of the fact, right, that like everybody's getting paid. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't ask y'all to do this for free.
This is the job, baby.
So that said, you know what I mean? Work with me. And one of the things that I'll say that this process really taught me is that I really am, it has affirmed for me my dedication to my work as a writer. Because I'm like, oh, obviously I'm taking things too seriously because everybody else is chilling. So maybe I'm doing too much. Like maybe I could bring it down by about 50% because y'all seem to be like, oh, it's not a. And people in publishing are so, lackadaisical and so like relaxed, and everybody's always on vacation.
Right. Very that.
And I'm like,
very that. Very that.
Stop playing with me.
Very that.
Actually, like that's the people being on vacation piece has been instructive for me, right? Like our agent gets a whole month off, and I think our agent is off like maybe in July or something like that, and I'm like, oh, I love that, right? And like, I've been leaning into like, no, I'm going to be off this week, and I'm not going to be in the email, and I will turn on this bounce back email, and I will get it when I can, right? And like, I'm always so like in it that way, but like also it's really difficult for me to always be so tapped into it. And kind of to the point of like what was challenging for me about this book, like we talked about depression and anxiety and about the ways that it showed up and like the ways it was frustrating working through the work. Like this book for me, I think the most difficult periods have been deadlines for me. Right. Like I'm a person who like coming up to the deadline that really like pulls out the depression for me. And it makes it more and more difficult. Tre'vell is a writer that can like get up and write from 6 to 11, right?
Oh, I love a deadline.
Yeah.
A deadline will get me together. Okay.
Yeah. Well, like Tre'vell has worked at the LA Times, right? Having to turn out articles daily. Whereas like I have not written in that same kind of way. And like Tre'vell talks about their writing style wanting to change it. Tre'vell will write sentence by sentence, right? And will like go back and edit the sentence and change it and move the comma and try a different word and then go to the next sentence. Whereas I'm a person who has to like let it all just kind of flow out and then go back and then edit and change and move around and all that kind of stuff. And like it's so challenging for me to like get in that zone for it to all flow out though, that I've been really trying to work on being able to channel it as opposed to it having to just come and not being able to like harness that power and been like trying to like figure out how to make it work has been really, really difficult for me. And as I'm starting to write my next piece, like I'm trying to like find ways to be able to use that power, if you will, right? That ability, that tool, in a way that is more focused, because it's been so challenging for me I've been writing my next book already for like 3 years, right? And I've been writing essays for it and kind of telling the stories in it, but like trying to like make it happen when I want to, as opposed to when it's coming has been really, really challenging for me. And our last break that we had right before Christmas, we had our last like design draft edit or something like that. And like we had to, no, this was in February, I'm sorry. And we were off in February from FANTI, and we had an edit to get in, which was the last pass of edits. And I had time scheduled off and thought that I was going to be done at a certain date, and we had to go past that by like 5 or 6 days. And I was so mentally drained that like getting through that was the most difficult that I'd had as far as like trying to like get into just being off. And like it's exhausting to like to write the work. Tre'vell, you as you specifically named it, like the stuff that is not writing the work is also then challenging, right? Having to go back and edit every single page and make notes about the design and the line break. And that should be 3 lines as opposed to 2 lines, and colors. And this one is missing. Did you guys notice that? Can we change this? And there's one of our design elements that like, I'm a big design person. And like, as Tre'vell can tell you, like we went back and forth about design with our designers so many times because it just wasn't right for me. And so then when the design came back in that last draft, it was right. And I was like, oh, I was so happy. And then for us to get it in person here in the last day and like to open it and to see like the colors of the pages and the ink and the text, and like it all just like came together in a way that I was so nervous about, and also had started to resign myself to like, it's going to be what it's going to be. And it will be fine regardless. And like, you know what I mean? And like trying to also want this book to be beautiful in a way that is worthy of us. right?
Right.
That is worthy of our language, that is worthy to put our words on, to sit on my grandmother's shelf and your homegirl's shelf. And like, I want people to open up this book like while they're at the pregame at someone's house getting ready to go out, and like be able to laugh at some of the definitions on some of the pages. But I also want people to be able to sit down on the couch in their office or in their bedroom or in their living room or whatever, and like really kind of think about what code switching is and how they do it and how they approach it. I want people to flip through these pages and like feel something and feel connected to it and feel honored and feel celebrated. And like the design in that was also so important to me, that it would feel a certain way for people for it to feel credible and like it's high end and like it matters and like it's not just like some throwaway thing. I remember in one of our interviews with a linguist, Dr. Ann Charity Hudley, who was a really fantastic interview for us a couple of different times to really get perspective from her. She talked about how like the way that Black people speak is often addressed as like broken English, or, you know, as if it is not valid or not worthy of study and, you know, and appreciation and respect. And hearing her talk about that from an academic perspective, it gave me so much validation. It gave me so much appreciation for the distinct ways that we speak and the ways that we recognize it, even when it's denigrated in the world, even when it's misspelled in our closed captioning, even when it's not appreciated on social media, even when it becomes the butt of the joke, right? Like it is still real. And like I'm now getting to see it, and like I'm feeling grateful that we get to have the way that we speak and the way that we address the world celebrated in this way. So it was very taxing on me though, because I felt like there was a lot of weight in what we were doing. Tre'vell's been trying to jump in, but I kept talking. What is it, girl?
You know, listen, I had my soapbox moment. So I said, you know, we're going to let him have his too. But on that point though, a question I have for you, Donovan, is, I mean, when I feel like, you know, Jarrett just articulated kind of this like broader responsibility that like he kind of felt, right? In the course of the work that we did.
Mhm.
I similarly, you know, recognize and felt some sort of responsibility based on the topic of my book. And I would imagine that you also did, because of the structure that you chose, the fact that you know, spent a lot of time with these people and diving into their particular stories. How did you go about navigating that, you know, responsibility side of, you know, telling this particular story, and doing it, you know, one of the things I love is that, you know, you say that it's a people's history of, you know, of a misunderstood era, which also, right, I think signals a difference in approach, perhaps, of how we go about articulating these things. It signals an intentionality, rather, right? So how did you go about navigating this idea of responsibility?
You know, this process took me back to my storytelling roots. I feel like I learned through the process of writing the book that I got into journalism because I was always a storyteller who came from a family of storytellers. And I figured, well, the way to do this in an official way and to make money doing it is to be a journalist. That is a storytelling practice. And then you learn all of these tools and techniques that then, you know, change the way that you do the work, that they make it, you know, official and like unbiased and objective and all that stuff. And, you know, and some of it's good and some of it's bad, right? Like the like ethics are solid. But, you know, some of the stuff around objectivity and how to treat sources can be questionable and can be kind of white supremacist. So for me, I thought this book has to resonate as true to the people at the center of my concern, which are Black people who are impacted by it. So that meant not just telling the official story. And, you know, I think, you know, the reason why it is, you know, nearly a almost 500-page book is because the official story is there and it is well documented and there are sources and sources are cited. And I did lots of interviewing and research, and it is, in my opinion, a very bulletproof history of cracks rise and fall. But also I knew that it wouldn't.
And you know, I love a index, and it's got a good index.
Yes. because that was important to me, right? That it has to be, Black folks are not going to you can't just tell us anything. So, you could come and say, I'm a journalist and of course I did this. We're going to say, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Show me your work. You know what I mean? I need to be able to look and check for myself after you leave this room. And and then also I knew that it wouldn't be meaningful to the people that I wanted to reach unless it also included the voices of us. So that's why it's a people's history. So, when people buy the book, and we do need y'all to buy the book.
Listen.
Amen.
Buy the books.
Yes.
That when people
big purr.
Buy the book, what they'll see is that there's this meta history, but then there's also the narratives of these four individuals that kind of branch out, across that timeline. And that was really important to me as a way of getting closer to what is the truth, not just what is factual and what's documented, but how people lived it and how that adds a layer of meaning to just the facts. So for me, to answer your question, that's a long-winded way of saying that I knew that as long as I was rigorous in my approach to documenting the history and also open and careful in my treatment of people and their stories, that I would get to something that was responsible.
I think that you've done a really beautiful job with this book as you are contextualizing these stories in the time that they were in, but also in like the way that the culture felt. Mm-hmm. I love reading your writing because one, I can hear your voice in your writing, but like I feel like there's someone just telling me a story as opposed to it feeling over edited and overdone. Like it feels, as I hear you talking about what it means to be a people's history for you, that is what it feels like, right? It is an easy read and it's a long read, right? There's a lot in here, but it's just such a beautiful piece of work. And I'm what?
Y'all are not gonna keep calling my book long.
It is. It's a lot of book.
Well, hold on. Let me jump in here. Well, first of all, the book is long. However, she is. Listen,
but it's worth it.
She's a girthy girl, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that but that's what I was gonna say. The thing is, though, is like we also have to articulate that, like, it's a great read. It's a simple read. It's super digestible, but it is long because you're gonna have to work and wrestle with some things, and that's okay.
That's very true.
Yeah, that's okay. I told somebody about my book. Somebody said that they that they were reading the book and they found themselves like putting the book down and like Googling stuff. Good, do some work.
Absolutely,
educate yourself. It can't just be on us, right? Everybody has a role to play, right? And part of that might be sitting your ass down, right, and diving into this very comprehensive telling of this era, right? Like it is. You can say what you want about Warmth of Other Suns, okay, or Cast, or When Crack Was King, but baby, once you get to the end, okay, you will be made the better for it, okay?
Well, and I think that's what's really important about it. Like you talk in the book about how the news media had really started to tell the stories of crack through the black stories that they just kind of dehumanized, right? It was crack babies, it was women on crack and doing sex work, and like they didn't have stories, right? They weren't people. They didn't have like a contextualization that was important. And so I'm always thinking about the ways that we as the media, right, are telling stories and like what our role is in that, what our responsibility is in that. And I think that you do such a beautiful job of like adding color and texture and story and like validity and respect to these stories, because it's like, yeah, she was the woman on the corner that was on crack, but like, she had like a life before she got to the corner, right? That she has a family that loves her, or a family that is gone, or something that happened.
Right.
And I think that as you tell these stories, like we give them more of an opportunity to be seen as whole and as human. And I think that they as opposed to being the butt of a joke, right? As opposed to just being a number or someone in a photo that you see on Instagram, or someone that, like that is being made fun fun of or looked down on or pitied or whatever it is. And I think that you're doing such a beautiful job with that. And like, I'm just really, really grateful for the work that you have.
Well, let me say quickly, I should say that one, that I appreciate those kind words, but I think what's so special is that that's something that all of our projects are doing, something that, you know, this show is doing, which is that, you know, Black people, we are reporting on like the weather, as though our lives have no meaning and have no context. And we know as Black people that there's so much meaning and there's so much context to our lives, and that there's so much beauty in it that gets missed. And there's an opportunity for us, for everybody, to learn something about the human experience if we would just stop and pay attention to Black people. And you know what I mean? Like, listen to what Black people are saying. Think about what Black people have been through. Think about all the ways that Black people show up, and you might learn something about yourself. So, you know, we've talked about some of the, like the FANTIs and some of the, you know, what's the other one?
Complex and complicado.
Oh, I'm like, what's happening right now? You're doing a bit, and I don't know where it's going.
I'm not doing a bit. That, like, I think it's such a beautiful thing. One, that we get to make money as Black writers.
Amen.
Because being a Black writer is all about being a thinker and an authority. And nobody ever intended for us to be thinkers and authorities on anything. So not only are we, but they also got to pay us to do it.
Listen.
And that we have not taken Tre'vell, and that we have not taken the easy way out. That, like, we've decided to tell stories that we know are important and that we know are interesting and that we know people want to read, you know, and not just, you know, some, you know, simple, stupid, I don't know what.
Shout out to us.
You know what I mean? So shout out to us.
Mm-hmm. I just have one last question for you before we get out of here. This is a question that I wish more people would ask me about, and so I'm going to ask you. How did you come to this cover?
Sorry, I am laughing because it was a fight.
Same.
Oh, it was a fight. It was a fight. And like I said earlier, I like to fight.
Listen.
No, actually, I do. We don't like to fight, but we're not scared to fight.
I'm not a confrontational bitch, but I'm not afraid of a confrontation. Like, come on.
Okay? And to quote the great Sophia in The Color Purple,
listen,
all my life I had to fight.
That part.
So that cover came about because I wanted the cover to do a few things. I wanted to communicate that it was a history. So I wanted official and sort of vintage looking text. So that's why we got both of those typesets on the cover. Also wanted to be able to have, you know, color and something bold. And we ended up with sort of like an orange red because I wanted it to just jump off of the shelf at people. And lastly, it was very important to me that I include a figure, because the crack epidemic is not just about a substance or a period. It touched people. So people are at the center of the story. So somebody had to be on the cover. But it couldn't be somebody that you knew. I didn't want them doing something that was sensational. I wanted just a Black person living. So we ended up with a image, a beautiful photograph of a young man in New York in the early 1980s, right at the beginning of the crack era, just looking out over the city. And, you know, we kind of like punched up the contrast on it. So that way, you know, his silhouette would be really powerful, and was very inspired by artists like Kerry James Marshall and his use of Black in the way that he painted his figure. So his Black people are the color Black. We were very inspired by Kara Walker's, the typeset that Kara Walker uses in many of her exhibits, and you know, using just classic book typefaces to insist on the authority of her work, right? So like, not only is it done in this way, but I'm going to present it to you in the visual language of authority. So you know, that was the goal with it, and this was sort of the design that I wanted from the beginning. I got lots of other designs, and I just kept saying, you know, let's try again until the idea is better than the idea that I had.
I know that's right.
Okay, that was my charge to the art people was, this is my idea. I would love to hear better ideas. Period. Heavy on the better.
We don't have time to get into all of the back and forth about our design stuff, but like 1000% that. I should also note here before we go that your partner has been on our show before and is also an author, and he was on the show in our first season talking about barbershops.
Yes.
His name is Antonio Johnson. We know him as Tone.
Yes.
He has a book as well called You Next, which is all about like the barbershop experience through photography. So like check out Antonio Johnson's book, You Next: Reflections in Black Barbershops. When Crack Was King is available everywhere. Now it is time for our dishonorable mentions. These are the stories of people or things that really kind of either got on our nerves or really turned us up, either for their stupid or for their good. Tre'vell, you want to get started?
Yes, I just have one this week, and that is this new podcast I started listening to recently called Stealth. And it is a interview-based podcast in which, these two trans men are interviewing, actually, I don't know if they're trans men, transmasculine people are interviewing other transmasculine people who transitioned either socially or medically before 2000, the year 2000. And it has been, as an extension of my book, anyone who's read my book, We See Each Other, a Black trans journey through TV and film. One of the chapters near the end is about transmasc representation. And one of the things I talk about is how, there's this very complicated, complex, set of reasons as to why, some would say so much of our discourse about trans visibility centers on trans women in films and not trans men and transmasculine people. And I think this podcast is exploring a lot of that complexity. And so they interview just regular trans people, trans men, transmasculine folks, about their lives and their experiences with transitioning, with community, with, their broader lives. And I think it's a really great resource for folks, but also a great kind of archive of transmasculine nitty that folks should check out. So Stealth, a transmasculine podcast. That's it for me.
I want to give an honorable mention to Spill, the new, relatively new, well, pretty new, I would say, social media app or site that is Black owned and created. I more so want to give them a shout out for seizing this moment that Twitter really fucked up on last week, where if you're not paying attention, Twitter limited how many tweets you could view and engage over the course of a day. And that really kind of irritated people, myself included. And it was such a great moment for Spill to be able to kind of seize on it. And like they've seen a lot of growth. We've also seen that Threads, which is the new offering from Instagram and Facebook, or Mark Zuckerberg, has also done really well because it was easy for people to transition into. But like, shout out to the people over at Spill for taking that moment. You had a lot of face. What was that?
I want to, affirm your shout out to them. I also want to note that like, Spill ain't spilling for me quite yet.
You said the tea ain't hot enough yet.
Like it not yet. And I don't know why. I think it's just maybe it's the colors, maybe it's the user experience is a different one than we're used to. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it is, but Threads. Wait a minute. Threads feels like for me.
Uh-oh.
Okay. I'm just saying.
Is it the anti-blackness? Is
probably.
Let me move on. I've been wanting to shout this out for quite a while, but I think I keep forgetting. I want to shout out a creator named Kelly B. She has a YouTube channel called Deeply Madly Modern. If you are at all you're familiar with me, I'm a big fan of interior design, and that's a lot of my like creative interest. She has a channel called Deeply Madly Modern. Her style is very different than mine, but like I really enjoy her personality. She comes from like a fashion background. She's really, really fantastic. So go check out Deeply Madly Modern on YouTube. Lastly, I want to shout out a new documentary that's going to be over at the Outfest, that's premiering at Outfest, I should say. It's called Truth Be Told. It's by, I don't want to mess up her name, I believe it's Nneka Onuorah. Say it, Tre'vell.
It's Nneka. I don't know how to say the last name, but Nneka is her first name.
First of all, the fact that you were just going to say it's Nneka, I believe it's Onuorah. She has a new film coming out called Truth Be Told. The post says, have you ever heard Pain Caused by the Church or Your Religion? The world premiere of part 1 of my new film, Truth Be Told, is on July 20th at Outfest. I've watched this trailer. It is a really extraordinary look into the church. From what I can see, I'm excited to go check it out. So shout out to them.
First off, Nneka is a wonderful director. Nneka directed Lizzo's Watch Out for the Big Girls, the Emmy Award winning Lizzo's Watch Out for the Big Girls. And I may or may not have seen an earlier cut of this documentary, and it is definitely one that I think folks should check out.
If you saw it.
If I seen it.
If you had seen it. Okay.
If I had seen it, you know.
Before we go, we want to remind y'all of a couple of things. Number one, Historically Black Phrases is available for pre-order right now. Go to historicallyblackphrases.com to pre-order the book and get your copy on the way. If you haven't already gotten We See Each Other, a Black trans journey through film and through TV and film, that is currently available. And Tre'vell was just talking about podcasts and trans representation. We See Each Other, the podcast, the limited series is complete. If you have not already checked it out, please go check it out. There are some really, really fantastic conversations. I'm still like getting through the end of the series. So make sure to go check out We See Each Other. You can subscribe to it, like it, comment.
Why is it taking you so long? Is that your transphobia showing? Is that
absolutely?
Is that why?
Well, it's more of like the erasure of transness that I'm trying to do. Like I'm trying to live like Florida.
You are a tool of white supremacy.
Of what?
Of white supremacy.
I thought you said black supremacy. I was like, not Terry Crews. If you are watching us on YouTube, you can go to FANTIPodcast.com and check out all of the previous episodes. We've got 3 seasons before we landed over here on YouTube. So check us out as a podcast. If you have a comment or suggestion about this week's show, you can hit us up on the social medias at FANTIPodcast or on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Use the hashtag FANTIFam and we'll jump into the convo with you. Or if you just really got more to say and the social media just is not enough, you can hit us in our inbox. FANTI@MaximumFun.org is the email address where you can shoot us your message or your voice note or whatever it is.
And if you would like to put your money where your support is, you can do that at MaximumFun.org/join. Also, shout out to the network. Officially, as of this week, we are a worker-owned company. So shout out to them. Yes. If you like that mission, which you should, and you like what we do here, go on over to MaximumFun.org/join, okay, to become a financially contributing member of the FANTI fan. Our music is brought to you, as always, every week by Corey, COR.ECE, wherever you get wonderful music, okay? Corey has also been doing a lot of great directing of music videos lately, so check him out. Absolutely. Our graphics, as always, are by Ashley Wynn and the folks over at Moonhouse Creative. Our editor is Anne-Marie Huber, and our producer is Palmira Muni.
I feel like that was good. Our senior producer is Laura Swisher. This is a production of Maximum Fun.